Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, then this is the show for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy to create the life you love or love the life you create. Now here's your host, Dr. April, and her co-host, Coach K.
Intimacy is real. And am I muted? Okay, I'm sorry. All right. Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. How are you doing, Coach K?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm just doing wonderful. It's the middle of October, and yes, and getting ready for the fall season and, of course, the big Halloween.
Yes, that is right around the corner. But the cold has already started to, peek in here every once in a while.
Yes. Yes. And I like this time of the year because this is the time of the year that it's like you were just actually having the sweetness.
Yes. I don't know why the pull for sweetness just hits so hard. But yeah, I guess that's true. You start thinking about the pumpkin pies and the sweet potato pies and cakes and eggnog with or without rum.
Yes. And I just love, one of the sweetest things that I love is intimacy. Of course, that's just, for me, it's just like, yes. And to have a wonderful and amazing guest on, today's topic, we're going to explore intimacy with a clinical sexologist, which you actually know, Shauna Harris. Yes.
Yeah, we came through the same program. And so it's really exciting when we can have someone who have shared the same experience. So we can talk from the same place, just like you. You took it to the next level and you're a doctor of intimacy.
Yes.
But we're all in that same shared space.
Yes, which is, intimacy is so sweet, and savor. And I think people don't. And the other great thing about it, we're in this time period of Thanksgiving, being thankful.
Yes. And that is all about and surrounded by and engulfed in intimacy. Absolutely.
Yes. Just being thankful for that space and connecting with people and connecting with your loved one, and especially that significant other, which is wonderful. Before we get into the topic, of course, I love to highlight always our charity of the month. And since we're also in the month of October, the sadness is that sometimes people are in relationships that are abusive. And so I just want to put it out there that if you're in those kind of relationship, we have a great organization that is called actabuse.com. There's a nonprofit and helps shelter, provide services, housing, counseling for those people of domestic violence and human trafficking.
Well, I'm glad you're able to share that, because sometimes people who are in those situations, they're not sure where to turn at all. So anytime that we can offer where someone can turn, I think is a great thing.
Right, definitely, yes. And for those who are tuning into our thing and you're out there listening, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we are going to explore the sweetness of intimacy. We'll be back in a moment.
Life can be overwhelming sometimes. We think we are a burden to others. We think that it's better to hide it and suppress our hurt, but it's not. As Cave Coral Therapists, we will provide you with quality, confidential counseling services in a relaxing and peaceful environment. Talk to a professional today. Book an appointment on www.capecoraltherapist.com or call 239-565-6921.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. Welcome, Shauna.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I'm
Yeah.
excited to be here.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you here. Yes. So you have your clinical sexologist who is out there in Arizona, and you have a best-selling book. Yes.
I do.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And from reading your background, you have transformed your life.
You know, I was like listening to your introduction, and I am actually super grateful to be able to be here in October because I am a survivor of domestic violence, and so I was super honored to be asked to begin with, but to be on October is kind of like heightens my gratitude because I have been in a place where it was very dark and I did not know where to turn and I did not have the resources. And so to be able to, I guess sort of show that it can be something that we can overcome and, reaching out for help is just, it's a huge game changer. So providing resources is just, it's a gift.
Wow. Well, thank you for that authentic answer. Yeah. Because many times when people are in abusive relationships, they feel like they're never going to find love, even if it's within, you know, or even, and to be as bold as you are. And as
it took a while. It took a while because your world becomes so small when you're in it and you don't want anybody to know. And, I grew up in Canada and, I was deemed the one that was going to have the most successful relationship because I was just so bubbly and extroverted. But when you go through something like that, it really changes you. And I became this person that, your circle becomes very small because it is embarrassing and it's humiliating. And how could I find myself in this situation? I had all my stuff together. And, that's kind of not how life works. You get dealt cards and you kind of figure it out. And so, that is one of the reasons why I wanted to become a clinical sexologist and a relationship coach, because if I can help at least one person not have to go through what I went through and provide tools to just, grab, I guess regain the power and really understand that you can come out of something that deep and that dark. I mean, that's what I'm here for. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes. So one of the questions we ask all our guests is, how do you define the word intimacy?
Oh gosh, that has evolved too in my journey. I think, way back when I don't even think I knew what the word intimacy meant. To me, it just meant sex. And in my first marriage, I wasn't provided, or I didn't create. You can't point fingers because you always bring your stuff to the table too. I didn't create an atmosphere or an environment that was safe to be vulnerable. And that also wasn't, it wasn't provided on the other end as well. So I was never vulnerable. I never shared my needs, my wants, my desires. And so when sex came on the table, it was like a checklist. And okay, I mean, I guess we did it for the day or the week or the month or whatever. And that was my intimacy check off for, that time period. And it wasn't, and I just thought that was normal. I mean, I met my guy when I was 17 years old, and that's so super young. And, we were given this sex ed, right, quote unquote, that sucks. And, you just kind of roll with it. And I actually was a teacher prior to moving to Arizona and all that. So I love teaching human sexuality and life skills because it allowed me to create relationships with the kiddos that actually provided skills that they could use long term, and not to knock like the typical education, but like we're just not given enough. And so, on my journey and through, my experiences with domestic violence, and I just knew that I was put on this earth for more. And part of that, I love to serve and I love to help. And so when my kiddos were growing up, I made the realization that like I probably will not survive this if I don't do something.
Right.
And it was a lady at Bible study one day that said, you know, Shauna, you need to make some decisions. And I grew up with a single mama. So asking for help, like you don't ask for help. You want stuff done, you do it yourself.
Right.
And like never would you ask a man. Like that was not on the table of things to even try to do. And so like I look back now and I'm in such a 180 situation, and I look back with pride and I look back with gratitude, because it's being aware is the first step, right? Like I wasn't aware of what even intimacy was. And so, you know, opening up your mind and understanding that it is just more than sex. And my gosh, like a normal, healthy, thriving relationship has something called connection.
Right.
And it has something called a safe place to actually be yourself. And it doesn't matter. You know, there's no judgment or whatever. And so a lot of soul searching to realize that intimacy is unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. And it is, you know, the ability to be vulnerable. It's the ability to be safe. It's the ability to just be silly and let go and like run around the house naked and just have fun with each other and really like intrinsically learn so much about yourself, along with learning so much about your partner. And when you have a connection that you want to do it together, it's just such a beautiful thing that I didn't even know existed. So that is what intimacy means to me. It's just like a really deep connection that you just can't get enough of. And I don't even mean sexually. I mean, that's part of it. But like, I want to know my partner. I every day, like being curious is such a skill that everybody needs to grab onto, because complacency, there's no place for complacency in a relationship. And I think when we get lazy and stuff, it like falls to the wayside. So just working on that connection every day, and you know, that the intimacy can skyrocket if you want it to.
Right. I love how you use the word connection. I mean, I think you said it like 1,000 times.
Sorry.
That's okay. But it is, and like you said, that playful connection of just being completely vulnerable.
Yeah.
And wanting to play and wanting to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't even honestly know what the word silly meant. Like silly, that's like, don't be silly. That's ridiculous. And now not a day goes by where we don't do something super stupid and silly. And it's just fun. And that's how it should be.
Absolutely. You went from a checklist to checking in.
Absolutely. Like, that's so good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you talked about earlier about the sex ed that many people receive. That is, how can I put it? It just distorts our mind. It's just, I'm not sure what it is. Yeah. Compared to, and even now you do some teaching on sex ed. Yeah. What do you think it's made the changes, and what information can you provide our audience?
Gosh, that's a big question. Well, I think that the sex ed we have is just like, it's a great starting point and a great stepping stone, but it isn't like, oh my gosh, you know, we do the week in June or the week in May, depending on when your school year ends, and then we're good to go. And our kids should be making the best decisions they possibly can make, and when they head out into this world. And it's just not so. Like, it's great that we know the word vagina and penis and where it's located, and what the two do together, and it's for procreation and STI, and all of that kind of stuff. I get it. But what we don't teach our kiddos is the physiological consequences and the emotional consequences and all of that stuff that is so far beyond just a penis goes in a vagina, or a vagina and a vagina, or a penis and a penis, whatever, right? So I think that we are doing our kiddos it's such a disservice not to provide that really, really important information. And I know that there's like a myth out there that, oh my gosh, it's scary to tell our kids this because they're going to want to go out and do it.
Right.
And I mean, as a mama, that's terrifying. But on the flip side, as an educator and now doing what I do on a daily basis, information is power.
Oh, yeah.
And and I don't like to stop there. Information, knowledge is power. But yeah, like it's what you do with that information. If you just sit with it or you just like don't do anything with it, yeah, like whatever, it's just another book on the bookshelf, right? But if you put it into action and you're put into a situation where you're like, okay, I've now been educated that this doesn't feel right and this shouldn't be a place where I need to be. I need to get out. Mm-hmm. So having the knowledge provides you with some tools in your tool belt of, okay, this feels good. I might want to explore a little bit more. I feel safe. Right. Or this is just not for me and I need to draw a line. And not having that information, you're like a deer in the headlights and you're like, oh my gosh, do I, don't I, do I, don't I? And if I do, then what happens? And if I don't, like, what happens to me then? So providing information, I just think is a total game changer.
Yeah, I think the work as a sexologist is super important because of that gap. You have the gap of the school who's saying, you know, I want to teach something, but it's really not my job. And then you have the parents that don't know what they don't know, because many parents didn't receive it, don't know how to talk about it. And quite frankly, some of them are like, well, you know, if they ask me, then I'll tell them. So I think that being able to proactively and age appropriately speak to your children about sex and sexuality is everything. So getting with, you know, the Dr. Aprils, the Shaunas, the Coach K's of the world, and just asking for the words to say is important.
Yeah.
Right. And I know I work with a lot of couples, and sometimes, especially in the female side, it's like, oh, my partner is supposed to know how to please me. I'm so sexually frustrated. And they blame it so much on and then when you ask them, like, they can't even really, they're too shy to talk about it. But it's like the male is supposed to know what to do with your own body.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of how I grew up in that sort of realm too. And once you sort of do the work and you get educated, like your pleasure is just that it's yours. Right. And how is my partner supposed to know? Like, I know we as women were taught like men should be able to read our minds, but newsflash, no. Sets us up to fail every single solitary time. Because like, how the heck does he not know what I'm thinking? Like, get your stuff together, dude. You know? So I just think that your pleasure is your pleasure. You know what feels good. You know what drives you crazy. You know what's like, that totally turns me off. And every body is different. Right. And so that's where, you know, communication comes into play. And in my book, I have it is so hard to bring up sometimes when sex isn't regularly on the table. So how the heck do you do that? And I always tell my people, like, just blame me. Blame me.
Right.
Here's an idea. Here's a game. Here's a worksheet. Here's just put it on the table and just say, hey, you know, I was thinking of, or I read an article here, or like put the heat somewhere else.
Right.
And then it doesn't seem so like scary, right? Or uncomfortable. I mean, it is going to be uncomfortable. It's just like learning a new skill. Like I always think, like we don't come out of the womb learning how to have sex, learning how to ride a bike, learning how to walk or talk. It's a progression.
Right. But we come out of the room, just like one of the things you said, it's about being curious.
Absolutely.
We come out of the room being curious. And that's the same when it comes to our sexuality.
Right. And I think our society, and I don't know what it is, like we kind of squelch the curiosity and we put a cap on the silly, and I don't know why. I mean, it is sad, but if you learn that curiosity is a good thing and asking questions is, I mean, that's how you get to know each other. And so curiosity is always such a super, it's such a super skill that I say, like, you need to reestablish or bring that back into your relationship, because like you said, curiosity, it has the power to completely, reinvent your relationship, reestablish your relationship, reignite a spark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And especially for those people out there that say, I don't know what I like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, go mirror.
Yeah. Take a journey.
I don't know how many times I've said to my ladies, like, have you actually ever looked at your vulva?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, seriously, that is part of your homework tonight. I want you to go get a mirror and just check her out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And she does have a voice, and being able to, like you said, actually speak, to talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she knows what she likes. You just have to listen to her.
Absolutely. I always say women are born with two sets of lips, and we have to use them both. Speak from your mouth what you want for your vulva.
Oh, good.
Yes. For those people out there who are, I don't know if you get a lot of people who feel like they have a low sex drive. Yes.
So I'm sorry, you cut out. Do you have a question?
Okay. Yeah. So when you hear that, what are the resolutions or things that you tell them, man versus a woman, in the sense of?
I think desire is something that is so, there's a lot of shame put on it. There's a lot of guilt put on it, and it's not a straight line. It fluctuates from day to day, from hour to hour. So getting angry at me or getting angry at my partner for having low desire that day or whatever is just, that kind of makes it worse. So again, being curious with yourself, with your environment, your relationship, climate, is really important, because often, what is happening around us has a huge impact on our desire. Stress is a desire killer. Sometimes things happening in your health, whether maybe you're, anxious or depressed, or medication. Sometimes SSRIs have a huge impact on the way we're feeling, and sometimes that's not discussed when you are prescribed that. So it's always, again, curious, what are the side effects of this thing that I'm going to be taking, and will it impact my sexual health? And sometimes just a small tweak in the SSRI or an alternative might completely work for you. But again, it's getting curious. Okay, all of these things are happening around me, and I do not feel like being intimate with my partner. I got to think about this for a minute. Like, what's happening in my environment? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I hydrated? Am I eating well? Sleep is has the biggest impact on your sex life. I would never have thought that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, sleep obviously impacts your whole entire world, but I can't get enough sleep. And I just think it's such a nice gift to give yourself, your sex life, your entire life. So it kind of depends on what's going on. So when somebody comes to me with desire discrepancies in their marriage or in their relationship, oftentimes it's a myth to think that the woman is the one with the lower desire, and that's not always the case. And scientifically, actually, research shows that it's almost an even number. We just hear about, oh, women never want to have sex, blah blah blah. So again, it's being aware of what's happening in your world and doing is sort of like a deep dive. Okay, so if everything's great at work and my relationship climate is pretty good, we're getting along well, and I'm feeling safe to be vulnerable. So have a conversation, because sometimes a lot of times a conversation is what's needed. And so oftentimes you have put your relationship or your sex life or whatever on the back burner, or it's moving its way to the back burner and it just needs to be pulled to the front. Make each other a priority. Start flirting from across the room. Grab each other's butt when you walk by. Make out. Like life gets in the way.
Right.
And these rituals that we used to have when we were dating sometimes fall by the wayside. And it's like, no, when you come home, you better be grabbing me and sucking my face.
Yes, exactly.
For like longer than 2 seconds. Like, I want you to show me that you want me, and I will do the same. And if you, I always say, like, I'm sure everybody says this, but a relationship is like a garden. If you just let the weeds come up of life, and if you don't like resolve conflict and there's more weeds, and if you don't sleep, then like the soil dries out, the vagina dries out. So like treat it well, love it,
Right.
nurture it, give it sunshine, give it water, give it some whatever it needs.
Yeah, I was just thinking many couples don't really, sometimes when they come see me, they haven't really passionately kissed in so long. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad you mentioned that. And because that's important. That whole foreplay, that whole playing, it's critical.
Yeah, and I mean, the three of us obviously probably preach this to the masses, but like foreplay isn't just the 10 minutes before you jump between the sheets.
Right.
Like, when my toe hits the floor in the morning, like that's when it starts.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And it's my responsibility to be playful and to engage in some, communication, whether it be nonverbal or verbal, with my partner, because this is something that we're trying to cultivate for a long term. This isn't just like a, wham bam, thank you, ma'am, for me. Like, I want to be old and gray and still have this beautiful connection, and that takes effort. And I get so many texts or DMs or whatever that say, well, if it's meant to be, it shouldn't be effort.
Oh, relationship takes work, guys.
And I'm like, okay, if that was your bank account, like, does that work the same way? Like, you actually have to put stuff in.
Yes, you do.
To get some benefit out. And so, yeah, it does take work. Does it mean like hard, laborious work every single solitary day? No, not at all. But consistency is huge.
Definitely. And that emotional piece.
Yeah, I agree, because I think that, when we're younger, it's an evolution of the emotional maturity and what the emotional connection means to us. And I just look at my past relationship where there was none, and I look to mine now, and it's such a different outlook on life, on relationships, on how I carry myself, on how the confidence I have between the sheets and not between the sheets. Like, right. It has the ability to impact every part of your life.
And I'm pretty sure it was scary to try that realm of love and intimacy when you've been hurt. So it's good to know that you say, you know what, that what happened there is not going to stop me. I want to move forward. And that you're able to have that communication with other women, and sometimes men, of course, because sometimes once that wall comes up from being hurt from whatever reason, intimacy just lives behind there. And like you said, with the garden, without that sunlight, it just withers and dies.
Yeah. And I am like the queen of walls. I was so good at building walls. And the thing about walls is walls are so great at keeping the bad out. But when they keep the bad out, they also keep the good out.
Yep.
And so it's like my partners, oh, God bless him. Because when he came onto the scene, I was coming from a place of protection, and like, I didn't let anybody in, like nobody. And so I knew a lot about everybody else because I was still that person that like social fueled me, but nobody knew anything about me. And here comes this guy who I'm from Canada. He's from Chicago. He is like hardcore, and he knows how to communicate. And my first thought was like, what is he after? Like, why does he want to communicate with me? He wants something.
Right.
And so that was my outlook on it for quite a while. And then, getting to know him and him becoming like he was a pillar of strength at the end for me when I was finishing up my divorce and such, and we just became such good friends. And what was built there was trust and awareness that there are people out there that are healthy and that do want to help and that actually know how to communicate. And I know this sounds so naive, but I was not aware of that at all.
Okay.
And communication, I mean, my gosh, like, what do you have?
Yeah, that's everything. Yeah. But it's interesting how you took that. He was so strong and he wanted to actually just play with you.
Yeah.
You had this wall up, Yeah.
I'm like, hell no. Yeah. It took a while, the poor guy, but he's still around.
Yes, because he was determined, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like you said, communication is everything, and it's expressing your needs.
Yes.
And that person's needs and all of that. Wonderful. Yes.
Yeah. And understanding that, like, if you have needs, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're needy. Like,
exactly.
Everybody has needs, and they need to be expressed. If you want your needs met,
got to state them,
vocalize them, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, it has been wonderful having you on the show. Can you let the audience know where they can find you and all about your resources?
Oh, sure. Well, I do have a lot of my people are on TikTok, which totally blew me away. I wasn't aware of that would even happen to me. So I'm sexologist _ Shauna Harris on TikTok. And the coaching service that I created is called Explore Intimacy. And so that's who I am on Instagram and on Facebook. And then my book's available on Amazon, and it's called Speaking of Sex. And it's all about communication and what I learned and how I got out of my place and what like healthy relationships need to survive. Because I've been in both places, and I'm super happy that I'm in the place right now, and I don't ever want to go back, and I don't want people to, experience that. So.
Wow. Thank you so much for being on the show. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you for having me. Yes. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. This has been the Bringing Intimacy Back show. We'll take a short break and we'll be back in a moment.
Learn to cultivate a deeper connection with yourself and your inner spirit in order to further manifest a more fulfilling, intimate life. Find your purpose in life, develop unwavering confidence, heal your inner child, and authentically live this purpose every day. It starts with you. Couldn't be further from the truth. Intimacy is not taboo, nor should it cost a fortune. Get your copy today. It Starts With You is available on Amazon, Audible, and...
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. Wow, that was just so amazing. I love her energy.
Absolutely. It's refreshing. And, it's needed that open air conversation sometimes to hear about a journey that someone else has been on. Someone else needs to hear it to understand that, okay, it's familiar and you can come out on the other side.
Yeah. I was just, amazed how she shared with, us that she'd gone through an abusive relationship, and taught, all this other stuff, and how she has blossomed into a wonderful flower where she's sharing information about, intimacy and relationships and how to express your needs and communication. So definitely check her book out of Speaking of Sex.
Yeah, that is great show. Somebody needs to hear that and know that we are all human beings, that sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And speaking of great things that we all need to hear about, we have some great shows coming up. So next week on November the 2nd, we have Daniel James, the owner of the Prime Life Project, that will be joining us. And then on November the 9th, we're going to be talking about intimacy giving. It's something like Thanksgiving, but it's all surrounded about intimacy. And then we are going to make sure that you all are prepared and enjoy your holiday. So for November the 16th and 23rd, we will enjoy our holidays as well.
All right. Yes. So we'll be definitely taking a break in those 2 weeks. And if you're out there and you're thinking, about intimacy, just want to let you know we do have intimacy quizzes that you can take an assessment for yourself and for your relationship on Bringing Intimacy Back website. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. So if you like us, feel free to follow us on any of the podcast platforms in Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we will see you guys next week on the Bringing Intimacy Back show.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back, where intimacy is real. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Dr. April Brown's 7th book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon. We'll see you next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.